Hey y'all, Teddy Cooks here. Today I'm going to show you how to make an absolutely delicious recipe that you're going to want on your holiday table this upcoming season. I'm going to show you how to make creamed collard greens. Yes, I know in a steakhouse restaurant it's common to see a premium side dish offering of creamed spinach, but I'm a soul food cook and I cook collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens all throughout the year, almost every week. So what I'm going to show you how to do is cream your collard greens to have the delicious taste that you're used to, but in a different kind of sort of way. So let's get to cooking. I have several other videos up showing you how to clean, pick, and wash your collard greens. I'll link those in the description box below, so I won't show you that in this video. This video, I'm just going to show you the basic cooking process and the flavor profiles that we're going with to make this traditional collard green dish more new school, so to speak. So to start off with, I am cooking some bacon, and I'm going to use that bacon fat as I cook my collard greens. So I started off with about 2 pounds of greens that I cooked in water, bacon fat, garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, and then we're going to add lots more seasonings later, but this is just a starting point to season these collard greens that I cooked on medium-high for about an hour. So I'm running the cold water on the side of my colander. My collard greens have been seasoned, remember I told you, so I do not want to rinse them off, but I do want cold water so that the hot water from my greens don't burst any pipes underneath my sink. So that's why the water is running to the side as I put all of my greens in my colander and I shake it out. I do want them to cool down a bit before I handle them, so I'm going to let them sit there while I prepare my other ingredients. I'm using some heavy whipping cream, a few tablespoons of butter, 8 ounces of Parmesan cheese, and some smoked Gouda cheese. I love the flavor of these, and I also have a half a pack of mozzarella that's already pre-shredded. I'm going to go ahead and use that, and a small piece of yellow onion that's going to go in as well. So I cut up my onion, I chunked up my Gouda cheese, I left the rind off. I'm not going to cook that brown rind that's around the cheese. I also shredded up my fresh Parmesan. I'm not using the hard rind with that. And then I have my mozzarella that was already shredded. My butter, I have about 4 tablespoons of butter and 2 cups or 16 ounces of my heavy cream. That's what's going to go into this recipe. So I have the same pot that I cooked my collard greens back on my eye on my stove, and I have my 4 tablespoons of butter. I didn't rinse out the pot or anything, so you still see a few collard greens in there. And I'm adding some ground nutmeg. I'm also adding smoked paprika, black pepper, granulated garlic, onion powder, and no salt. This is a sodium-free alternative to salt. So if you're trying to reduce your sodium, you may want to look into using this. It is high in potassium, so if you have kidney issues, maybe you don't want to use no salt. Now, my butter has melted, so I'm adding in my heavy cream. And remember, I started with 2 cups, but I'm only going to add a little bit at a time. So I'm only adding about a cup of my heavy cream, and then we're going to let that warm up with the butter. And then we're going to add in some cheese. And notice I'm not using all of my cheese either. I'm just adding a little bit at a time. And I find this is what works best when making cream sauces with dairy with butter in it. You'll notice I'm using a silicone spatula instead of a metal one, and I'm also stirring almost constantly. I only pause when I want to add an ingredient. So I'm adding a few sprinkles of nutmeg, a few sprinkles of onion, and I'm doing that with the remainder of my dry seasonings. And it's okay to season just by taste. So just add a couple of sprinkles of each, and then we're going to taste this throughout our cooking process and even when we finish to adjust the seasoning. So the temperature for this eye on my stove is on medium. You do not want it to be on high because you don't want this to scorch and burn, and you want to make sure that you are continuously stirring so that none of the dairy products settle in one place and burn and scorch. So I'm adding in my cheese a handful at a time, and then I'm making sure that my time of not stirring isn't too long. So you can see me just going along and moving just to make sure things do get melted. I do have quite a bit of cheese because remember, we're not just using this cheese to flavor the dairy milk, but we're also going to be using this cheese to season the collard greens. And we started with 2 pounds, which is a good amount of collard greens. So don't be afraid of the flavor that you're going to get with this. The main thing is you don't want to over add pepper or salt. And because of the amount of cheese, I'm not using salt at all at this point. I'm just using the sodium-free alternative with the name of no salt. So you can kind of see that as I'm stirring, my cheese is starting to melt, and you can see as I stir that the cream is thickening up, and you can see more of the bottom of the pot as it's kind of constricting together. And so I do pull my spoon up a couple of times to watch the cream thicken as I drop it off of my spoon or spatula. As it gets thicker into the thickness I want, it will slide off slowly and be very thick, almost like a coating on my silicone spoon. So I'm letting that stay on medium-low for just a quick second while I make sure my collard greens are sufficiently drained. But don't take your eye off of that stove. So I'm using a clean kitchen towel. This is one that doesn't get lint on it. And I'm just using it to squeeze my collard greens that I let sit in the sink so that it would cool down. And it was still a little bit warm on my hand. Did you see that? So be very careful that you don't burn yourself. You don't want any kids or pets around you as you're handling these hot ingredients. So I'm just going to let that drain in my sink. And you can see how in just this short time, my sauce is changing. It's getting thicker. It's getting creamier. You can see the thickness as it slides off of my spoon, and that's exactly what we want to see. That's exactly what we want to see. So even though there are still a few chunks of cheese in my sauce, it's really okay. We're going to go ahead and add our warm greens into our pot. Now, as you recall, we only used 1 cup of our heavy cream so far, so we're just going to mix this together to see how everything incorporates. You can see the strings of the melted cheese already, so that's the mozzarella and the smoked Gouda. Smoked Gouda has such a delicious flavor. It's actually the only kind of Gouda that I like. I can eat smoked Gouda by itself easily. And then, of course, mozzarella. Parmesan has a nice nutty flavor as well. So that's another reason to not overdo the seasonings in the beginning, because we do want the flavor of the cheeses to come through. Now, I didn't add all of my cheeses to my sauce either, and I didn't do that intentionally because I do like the difference in the texture between the cheese that has been melted and the heavy cream versus adding some cheese down towards the end, so it will be a little bit firmer, a little bit chunkier. Even though it's going to melt, it'll be semi-melted. So now I'm adding in a little bit more heavy cream to get it to that creamy texture as our collard greens seem to absorb it and absorb the delicious flavor. And I'm going to go ahead and add the remainder of my heavy cream. So I did use all 2 cups, but I didn't want my sauce to break, so I was just careful to add it slowly. This is the time when you want to taste it again. And I decided I needed a little bit more onion powder and smoked paprika. And so you can add maybe a teaspoon or 2 at a time, mix it, and then taste it and see how you feel about it. Now, I wanted some extra smokiness, and so I decided to add 2 squirts of liquid smoke. Yes, 2 little squirts. And that will add a delicious smoky flavor. And I'm just stirring it up. And of course, you want to taste it again and look at how beautiful this is. Yes, this is a very rich and heavy side dish. But if you like collard greens, you may get a little bit bored with this, eating it the same way all the time with the same flavor. So I find mixing it up with this method of creaming it is fun, and it is very delicious. And I might make this instead of making macaroni and cheese as my side dish. So now that I have these greens cooked up, it's time for me to put it in a bowl, and it is so delicious. I have plenty of greens in my kitchen because I cook greens different ways all the time, but look at these creamed collard greens. So yummy. It doesn't take a lot of effort. You just have to be very cautious that you stir continuously and don't let your sauce burn. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave me a comment below and let me know if you think that you would be willing to try this with your collard green recipe, or do you just want to stick with the traditional way? Either way you cook collard greens, I am sure it will be delicious. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel and look at my other playlist that has just soul food videos on it. Thank you.